Hello, welcome. I'm happy you're able to join me here for this episode of the Podcast Engineering Show. My name is Chris Curran, and every other week we do one of these daily goody episodes. Oh wait, I'm calling them Chris's Goody Bag because in a brief episode, I go over 10 or 12 daily goody blog posts that I write. And today we're going to go over the post between June 7th and June 19th. And just so you know, I do this every other episode, and then on the every other episode, I do an interview with a guest, and we go over their equipment and workflow. We get all into the audio engineering aspects of podcast production. And these daily goody blog posts, by the way, you can receive them as an email every day or even a weekly roundup. Just go to the website, podcastengineeringschool.com. And thank you to everyone who comments on these daily goody posts. I really appreciate you all. And I just wanted to put something out there. If you know anyone who would like to learn more about the technical production of podcasts, please share this show with them and tell them to go to podcastengineeringschool.com because that's my school. That's what we teach. And I don't know how to get the word out. So anyway, if you think of anyone, feel free to share that information with them. The next Podcast Engineering School starts on September 10th, actually, 2019. And next week is Podcast Movement, PM19. Yeah, so I'll be there. It's going to be great. Keep an eye out for some live streams from Podcast Movement. I will be live streaming a little bit on the Podcasters Lounge channel. I don't know if you checked out the Podcasters Lounge yet. It's a live stream I do every Wednesday evening. Anyway, we're on every platform, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, all that. And we live stream to, YouTube and Twitch and Facebook. So anyway, find the Podcasters Lounge and then check out the live streams from Podcast Movement. Okay, so let's get to these daily goodies. The first one we're going to do is actually a Friday audio trivia. I did a couple of these a while back, and every now and then I'll do a little Friday audio trivia. So the trivia question is, when did the first Waves plugin become available? 2001, 1992, 2006, 1988, or 1997? And the correct answer is actually 1992. Mike Thomas got it right. And he also mentions that they're based in Tel Aviv. And so, 1992. Can you believe that? That was 27 years ago. Waves came out with their first plugin. So anyway, plugins have been around for a long time, and of course they're a lot better now than they were. So, and I don't know what plugins you use. I'd love to know if you ever want to drop me a note and say, these are my favorite plugins, Chris. All right, the next daily goodie. Opinions wanted regarding removing imperfections. So in this post, I brought up the idea of removing imperfections in the editing process, right? So we often think of editing out ums and, stumbles and, restarts and, pronunciation corrections and all that. And, you can remove all that stuff and then the conversation flows more smoothly. But in the back of my mind, I've always had this thought and question, if sometimes those imperfections, they actually almost draw the listener in, because it almost provides like a little bit of drama. Not drama, but you know what I mean. Like when someone's think about the opposite. When someone is just speaking perfectly and they're sort of monotone and everything's perfect, that can almost like lull you to sleep. So my idea was maybe these little imperfections actually keep the listener on their toes. I don't know. That's a question. What do you think about that? And, anyway, so then there's like some background noises, the out of the blue background noises. And anyway, there's a lot of comments on this post, so check it out. But I'm wondering what you think of this. I mean, pretty much the way I do editing for my shows and all my clients is just removing, blatant ums and any long spaces and mouth clicks. That's about it. I don't go nutty. I know some podcast editors who really go nutty. Like they almost start to focus on like the grammar of sentences and like, oh, if there's a few words that aren't quite necessary, they'll take them out, which is that I don't do that. That level of editing is that's above my pay grade, which means, and all that means is that it just takes a long time. And you know, how crazy are you going to get on a podcast episode, right? All right, the next daily goodie, backup hard drives. Yeah, so in addition to backing up your production files using a cloud storage company like Dropbox, it's really good to have a local hard drive or two to back up all your files and your client files locally. You know, I am a little bit crazy about backing up audio because I never want to lose it. And so I do a lot of backups, and it's great because I sleep very peacefully at night knowing that even if my computer blows up or even if Dropbox blows up, I have a copy of it somewhere, right? So it's just, you know, again, it just helps you sleep better at night knowing that if you have plenty of backups that you're never going to lose any of your files or your clients' files. I like that. Anyway, all right, next daily goodie. This is the golden age for securing new podcast production clients. So for you folks out there who work on podcasts and maybe you do some editing and production, this is the golden age for getting new clients. I mean, podcasting has never been more popular. It's still expanding. A lot of new businesses are now more and more coming forward saying, hey, we want to do a podcast. And like they need a production person. And they're usually going to outsource it because it's usually not enough work for them to hire someone. And so there's a lot of opportunity out there. So if you really want to find clients and make a good living working on podcasts, you know, decide who you want to work with and then go find them. They are out there. They're looking for you, actually. And then once you get them as a client, serve them really well and do a really good job. That's important. Be a professional, right? Okay, next daily goodie. Audio quality affects the credibility of the person speaking. Yes, audio quality does affect the credibility of the person speaking, meaning the perceived credibility. Yeah, I should have wrote that, right? Perceived credibility, because there's been tests probably every 6 months on social media in the podcasting space. There's a new study that comes out that proves scientifically that a person, when you're listening to someone speak and the audio quality is very good, you perceive them as more of an expert than if their audio was terrible. Like when someone's audio is terrible, it just, your perception of them goes down a little. And so even if they say they're a PhD and they're a Harvard professor, whatever people say, right? Whatever they say, if their audio is really bad, like you're not going to value them as much as if their audio was actually good. I mean, this has been scientifically proven over and over. Now, I don't know how big the perception of credibility is. I mean, look, if it's a Harvard professor, but he knows what he's talking about, but yet he sounds like rubbish, I mean, I'm still going to respect him as a Harvard professor. It's just that, okay, his audio stinks, but so it's not like bad audio is going to, strip you of all your qualifications and make you just an idiot. But still, it does affect the perception. And I actually included in this little blog post, which is from June 11th, 2019. You can go on the site and find it. There's a bonus rant message to all PR agencies because I got upset that like these PR agencies and these booking agencies, like they book people to be guests on podcasts, but then they don't make sure that they're going to sound good. They don't talk about microphone. They don't help the guest be prepared to sound good. So they end up having horrendous sounding audio. It's a pain in the ass to record them. They end up sounding like rubbish. And it's like, why are you booking people onto podcasts without giving them a decent microphone? I mean, we all know the ATR 2100 costs like $60 and you just plug it in USB and that's it. Right? So, all right, next daily goodie. The Sony MDR 7506 headphones. Yeah, these are very popular headphones. They're closed back headphones, which means they pretty much block out all the external sound. They're fully closed. That's the actual technical term, I think. Fully closed. And so it blocks out all the other background noise. They're pretty good headphones. They're not that expensive. I mean, I don't know. What are they, like $100 maybe? Maybe less? I'm not sure. All right, the next post was actually the Podcasters Lounge. So anyway, I'm skipping past that one, but hopefully you can tune in to one of the live streams on a Wednesday night. We have a lot of fun. All right, next Daily Goody. Recent rare recording in my studio. So I have a studio here in my basement of my home. It's a finished basement, and it's a very, it's a podcast studio, so it's not like a full music studio, right? It's just, my speakers, my computer, and, a bunch of some equipment, but it's not like a huge music studio or anything. But I always produce all my audio for my clients who are remote. And every interview I do is remote. So in my own studio, I'm the only one that's ever here. But recently, one of my local friends, I wanted to interview him for my Mystic Show, which is the show I do about meditation and spirituality. And because he's local and he's a good friend of mine now, I'm like, hey, man, come on over. We'll record a conversation. So he actually came to my studio, Mike Waskoski, and we talked about the raw contact, which is the law of one material. Not sure if you're familiar with that. But anyway, it was pretty cool having someone come in. So I used my regular mic, which is my RE20 that I'm using right now. And then I set him up with the Shure SM7B, and it was great. It worked out really well. It was nice to sit in person with someone and talk. And I did have to do quite a bit of post-production because, just when there's two people in a room and I told him to get close to the mic, and, sometimes when people aren't speaking, they make some noises. So I had to kind of clean up a bunch of stuff, but it turned out really well. All right. The next post is Chris's Goody Bag from whatever date that was, back in June. All right. Oh, the next Daily Goody is actually another Friday audio trivia. Okay. This is a fill in the blank, and there's only 3 choices. All right. Here we go. Sound travels blank at higher altitudes. I'll repeat it. Sound travels blank at higher altitudes. Is it faster, slower, or the same speed? Sound travels blank at higher altitudes. What do you think? All right. All right, take a guess, and then I'm going to tell you the answer, but I want you to actually make a guess. So go ahead. Say it out loud. I can hear you. Say it out loud. Does sound travel faster at higher altitudes? Does it travel slower at higher altitudes, or the same speed? Okay, the answer is it travels more slowly at higher altitudes, and that's because of the low temperature, and which means that the molecules are spread out a little more. Well, because of the not elevation, because of the altitude, the molecules are spread out a little more as well. And of course, Mike Thomas commented that, so thank you. So there you go. Now you know sound travels slower in colder temperatures and higher altitude. Okay, the next Daily Goody is actually it's a plugin, the Abbey Road TG mastering chain plugin. So this is a plugin by Waves, which I bought within the last, 3 months. It's actually a plugin that emulates the Abbey Road mastering processing, which they do at Abbey Road Studios in their mastering suite. And it's great. It has EQ, it has saturation, has compression and limiting. And I really like it, and I'm still sort of like, I don't know, it's taking a while, but I'm slowly building it into my production workflow. And not because it's not good, but just because I have so many plugins, and and again, whenever you switch plugins or add more plugins, like, it takes time, because it takes quite a bit of time, because you have to, put it into your plugin chain and then make sure it's, gain staged properly, and then find the good sound, and it takes time. So anyway, I'm still working on that, but it's a good plugin, the Abbey Road TG mastering chain plugin. I like it. In fact, some of the saturation in it is really nice, but saturation is one of those things, it's like, it's such a nuanced thing, and it's so subtle. Now, on musical instruments, it might not be so subtle, but like on the human voice, it can seem subtle, the effect of it. So, all right, next Daily Goody, wideband audio. You ever hear that? Wideband audio. It's also known as wideband voice or HD voice. So yeah, this is audio that's going over these phone lines, and the typical quality, the typical frequency range of audio that a telephone call provides is between 300 hertz and about 3.4 kilohertz. So an easy way to think of it is 300 hertz to 3 kilohertz. So 300 to 3,000, that's the range. So below 300 doesn't get transmitted, and above 3,000 doesn't get transmitted. That's why phone calls sound so mid-rangey without any low end or without any real high-end clarity. But wideband audio, it transmits a frequency range of 50 hertz to 7 kilohertz. So that's a lot better, all the way down to 50 hertz and up to 7 kilohertz. That's pretty good. And sometimes it can even go up to 11 kilohertz or even 22 kilohertz. I think it's 11, but yeah, so there's this HD voice. Some phones have it. Like I think when me and my wife speak, because we both have Verizon, and so for some reason, like when I call my wife from my cell phone to her cell phone, the audio just seems much more clear. So it's got to be one of these HD voice things. All right, next daily goodie. We got, I think, 3 more to go. When someone doesn't project their voice enough. Yeah, when someone does not project their voice enough. You've probably heard guests, or maybe you've even interviewed people who, when they don't, like I project my voice very well. Some people don't. They talk very softly, and even their consonants are, like I had this one woman on a show when she said, I think she said a word that began with P, like, what was the word? I can't remember. Let's say it's the word program. She almost like didn't pronounce the P. She's like, oh, the program. Like she just didn't say, like, just say P, pa, pa. That's what I was thinking in my mind. I'm like, come on, P, pa. She's like, the program. Like, I don't know. Some people talk so softly, and it's, so the problem is with people who talk really softly is that, first of all, their breaths seem louder. So, and I'm projecting, and my breaths are a certain volume. But if I was talking really softly and breathing the same way, like my breaths are relatively much louder. So that can be very annoying, especially when you boost up their level and maybe add some compression. Oh man, their breaths will be really loud. And the other thing is the mouth noises. When someone does not project and they're close to a mic, oh my God, you'll get like a bazillion mouth noises because they're not projecting and they're just talking like this. Like, people who don't project. I mean, look, I know some people are more soft-spoken, and that's fine, but there are some people who they just speak way too softly, and it's like, in my mind, I think, can you just speak up and talk like a normal person? Of course, I know it's not that they're not a normal person, but you get the idea. All right, next daily goodie. Recent experience recording a Shure MV5 desktop microphone. Okay, so I recently recorded a podcast where there was a person using a Shure MV5 desktop microphone. So this is one of those mics that it's like a little small round condenser mic, and it sits on a really small stand on the desk. So it sits about 6 inches above the desk. So what does that mean? Well, it's very similar to the Blue Snowball, which means that when a person is just sitting there normally talking, that means their face is about 1.5 feet from the microphone. And that's terrible because then the mic is going to pick up so much more room noise. The signal to noise ratio is going to be much lower. So, of course, I instructed the guest to basically get as close to the mic as he could and not to move once we start recording, right? Because that's another problem. People, you tell them to get close to the mic and they do great, and then the interview starts and they start talking like this, and then they'll come back to the mic and then they'll just drift off like this and they'll just be talking like this, and it's like, dude, can you stay in one spot? Oh, okay. So luckily this guy, anyway, he was in a fairly quiet room. And one thing that happened too was the recording level ended up being pretty hot. In fact, very hot. And so at the times when he got loud, it actually clipped a little bit, which for me, I'm not worried about because I can use the D-clip in Isotope RX7 to get rid of that. But I like when someone like that, who's very dynamic, I like when the level is pretty hot because that means when they start mumbling, at least when they're mumbling, the level is decent. So anyway, that's a whole nother discussion there. There's so many mini discussions we could be having. So if you listen to, the regular interview episodes I do of this show, you'll hear a lot more. Okay, here's the last one. Using 6, 12, or 18 dB per octave filters. So filters, rolling off the low frequencies or rolling off the high frequencies, they're called filters. And some EQs and filters give you control over the steepness of the filter. So most EQs give you control over how much you roll off, but not how steep the roll-off curve is. So 6, 12, and 18 dB per octave is handy to be able to switch between them. And the Schoeps Omnichannel is a great plugin which has these controls. On the filter part of it, you can choose 6 dB, 12 dB, or 18 dB per octave. That's how aggressively it rolls off the EQ, which that's what a filter is. It's really an EQ. And so in the Schoeps Omnichannel, it's great because you can use 6, 12, or 18, and you can switch depending on how aggressively you want to roll it off. I typically use the 6 dB per octave quite a bit. So I like a little more gentle roll off. And so, but sometimes I might even bring that roll off frequency all the way up to like 150 hertz or even 180 hertz. If someone has a lot of low end in their voice, I will roll it off a lot. And also the FabFilter Pro Q3 has even more control over the steepness of the filters. The FabFilter Pro Q3 is probably the best EQ plugin on the planet. I mean, of course, I might be exaggerating, but not really. It's just amazing, and that's why it costs $180 for one plugin. But it's awesome. Anyway, that also has a lot more control over the filters. So, all right, well, that's gonna do it for this episode. Thank you for listening. Don't forget, tune into the Podcasters Lounge, and hopefully you can catch some of my live streams from Podcast Movement next week. And if you have any questions or if I can help you at all, definitely, comment on one of the daily goodies on the website, podcastengineeringschool.com, or, contact me through the website, whatever. I'm here to help. If you need help, don't be afraid to reach out. And I hope you liked my my new announcer guy that I debuted on the last episode that I did with the daily goodies. So anyway, and he'll be back, by the way. He's off today. That's all. But in honor of him, I would like to say, as a farewell, Punar Milama. See ya.